Let's talk about what is happening in the United States. Do you see any legitimate justification for these moves by the Trump administration?
Well, good morning. And first, I should add that I'm also a proud alumna of the Harvard Business School. And so I am watching these developments very closely and with considerable concern. The United States has a long history of first-class education in the higher education and university sector and a proud tradition of international education. And I fear that these actions against Harvard are actually ideologically driven, and that it is not just Harvard who will be next in line in terms of actions being taken against it. Of particular concern is the attack on international education and this purported ban on international students, essentially declaring them as illegal immigrants. Now, great universities around the world, and Harvard University is a great university, thrive on having international students, academics and staff as part of their experience. And of course, it is impossible to have a great university without it having a global outlook. So this attack on international students is deeply concerning and goes against the whole notion of social cohesion and freedom and universities being great places that attract great minds. So I am deeply concerned about what is happening in the United States, and in particular how Harvard has been responding to what is a government-driven action against a private institution of global standing. All I see happening is that Harvard's standing in the world will be greatly reduced, and that should be of concern to universities around the world.
Indeed, the impact on the quality of research and knowledge advancements that institutions like Harvard can provide to the world, I'm sure, would be greatly impacted. So then, I know I'm sort of putting you out on a limb here a little bit, Julie, but from a legal perspective, how do you think it is going to pan out?
Well, clearly it's before the courts, and no doubt we will see a long legal process, because I cannot imagine that Harvard will take this lying down, and already there are legal processes underway. So I don't presume to be an expert on US constitutional law, but there are many in Australia who would be. But what I am concerned about is the impact on international students who suddenly find themselves deemed illegal immigrants. Now, some in the university sector see this as an opportunity for other universities to offer welcoming opportunities for the students who have been rejected by the US government to come to our universities. And I know that Australian universities do see this as an opportunity, and that will invariably be the case. If these students do not feel welcome in the United States, they will go elsewhere. Their parents have made sacrifices. They've worked very hard to be amongst the best and brightest, to be offered an opportunity to study at Harvard. And of course, they would be welcomed by other universities. But I don't see it in that simplistic way. I think this has a ripple effect for higher education around the world, and not only education but research. Harvard has been a collaborator over many years. I mean, it has an almost 400-year history. So Harvard has been integral to some of the great discoveries and breakthroughs in research, in partnership with others or standing alone. And its ability to do that will be severely restricted if it can't have an international component amongst its student body. And I just fear the impact globally on education and research if Harvard continues to be under this ideological attack. And I understand the government would rather Harvard conform to its requirements, but universities are not places of conformity and groupthink. Universities are for educating, for curiosity, for research, and for social cohesion.
And we'll have to see how this will really play out in the end. But what would be the implications for the concept of academic freedom or institutional autonomy? What kind of a precedent would this set for the world, and not just for the U.S.?
University research, and in fact university research around the world in equivalent economies and equivalent nations is generally funded by government grants, by philanthropists and donors, and by student fees, particularly international student fees. And that's the case for Harvard and other universities. If government grants are withheld, well, then the institution has to be robust enough to attract support from other sources. But of course, the research that universities carry out is for the community good, it's for the global good. And so if government funding is withdrawn, then the quality of research would suffer, the scale and depth of research would suffer, and without Harvard University's collaboration in research around the world, the globe suffers. It does have international ramifications. Of course, other universities will pick up these research opportunities. They will pick up the brilliant academics and students that would otherwise have studied at Harvard. But the diminution of a venerated institution like Harvard should be a cause for concern for us all.
I understand. And I understand a lot of schools in Asia are very active in terms of recruiting these students from the United States and from Harvard as well, the transfer program that they're ready and willing to offer. I just wonder if you're seeing an increase. Are you getting any calls at the moment from these perhaps stranded students who had been enrolled in the United States?
Our university is small but beautiful. We have about 20,000 students and about 4,000 or 5,000 academic and staff. So we're a small university in the scheme of things. We are the only national university in Australia. We were set up under federal legislation in 1946. Other universities are either private or state-based. So the Australian National University attracts a significant number of international students anyway, probably about 7,000 or 8,000 of our student population would be from overseas, and many of them from our region. We have limited exposure to the situation in Harvard at present, but I expect that the Australian National University will attract its fair share of inquiries from students who will be forced to look elsewhere to complete their studies or, in fact, to undertake their studies. And we would, of course, subject to government regulation in this country, we would welcome students. If you've been able to get into Harvard, we would be more than happy to welcome you to the Australian National University, and that would be the case with universities across not only our country but across our region.